Hello everyone, and welcome back to Bitwig Studio and Music Production. This is lesson 4.03, and in this lesson we're going to take a look at using the FX layer container to implement parallel processing. Before we do that, a quick touch from the last video. I obviously made a big mistake. I was saying how the S2 wasn't actually implementing the sidechain, but of course I'm totally wrong because we're running these guys in series. So if we go and listen back, we can actually hear that sidechain taking effect. So some of you probably caught that from when I was doing the video, but in case you didn't, do realize that this one is actually sidechaining from this effect. If you didn't watch the other video, don't worry about it. So let's open up a new project. I told you guys I was going to try to do all of this stuff new. And look at that, I just deleted that little sketch. Part of making work and being creative, and I think this is true for any kind of art you're doing, is you have to be willing to delete anything you do. Maybe I won't go further into that right now, but basically now I can't go back and edit the video because I just was covering something. But it is important to be able to let stuff go. And even though that little sketch was made in 15 minutes and I actually kind of liked it, I have no problems in just deleting it and trashing it because I know that I can always go on and do something different. If you get too attached to any one or two things, you may never make any more music in your life. So that little sidebar over, let's talk about parallel processing using the FX container known as the FX layer. All right, so we're here in a new blank project, and we're going to be looking at one of Bitwig Studio's containers, and this container is specifically designed for parallel processing, and that container is the FX layer. Now, what are the differences between using track duplication, using effect tracks, and using the FX layer for parallel processing? For starters, they all will sound a little bit different. No matter what you try to do with levels, and even if you try to do the exact same thing, sometimes there will be some nuances that we honestly just can't explain. And I think it just has to do with the way these programs are coded to handle gain staging. It gain stages differently if we duplicate and do parallel processing as compared to doing it inside of the FX layer. But remember, it's doing essentially the exact same thing. So when we duplicate out tracks, there is one issue, and that's that we have to set all of our levels from here, or we have to set all of our levels from the mix view, and that can get really annoying and it can get super confusing from time to time. Also, we've already talked about the CPU load and how that can have play a part. It doesn't really happen anymore, but in the past that was always an issue of lots of duplicated tracks with lots of different independent effects going on. So one of the solutions to that was the send and return, or the effects track here inside of Bitwig Studio. So instead of having to make 100 different duplicates, we could have a few different effect tracks and put different effects on all of these, and then send where appropriate using our knobs here or our knobs over here, or actually going in and setting it within the effect track itself. The one issue, and we touched on in the last video, is that if on our audio track we've actually impacted that signal by using filters or flangers or any effect, when we send, it's going to take that information with it. And so that kind of negates the whole entire purpose of parallel processing, which for a lot of people is always having one signal that's entirely dry so that you can keep the original intact and then do as much affecting as you want and just kind of bring in those levels where you see fit. And especially over a composition, sometimes it's fun to bring those in and out using automation. But then again, we run into the same issue where if we want to use the effect track and we want to also affect our sound from the source, we have to go back to using duplicates, and that can, again, run us into the exact same problems we just had. So Bitwig's tried to come up with a solution for us, and they've given us the FX layer. And the FX layer is simply a way to duplicate your signal without having to actually make independent audio tracks. The issue here, though, again, is that when we send into our send effect, if we're going to do that, is that it's going to take all of that information. So my kind of recommendation is you can get the best of both worlds. If you have a dry version of something, like we'd say this is dry. What are we going to use for this video, guys? Let's say we have a dry. Oh, you know I want that didgeridoo. Let's use the sitar, why not? So we have our dry sitar. Can you spell? And we'll duplicate it and we'll rename this wet sitar. All right, so I'm going to use this send effect to be reverb just because I know that in the context of a mix and in making a track, it's always good to kind of put your reverbs on your sends because you're going to want to make your song probably sound like it's in the same general location. And so if you have a few different reverbs, using that send and return matrix always tends to work the best. So I'll just put on the reverb and load up a random preset for now. Courtyard in Minsk, why not? And the cool thing is when you drop any of the presets and it's on a return channel like this, it automatically will set the mix to 100%, which is cool. All right, so I have that. And now on my wet sitar, I'm going to start to apply a little bit of parallel processing. So the first thing that I would probably do if I didn't have a dry track is create a dry track. And to do that, all you have to do is add a tool and then just delete it. All right, so we just have dry. So if I play this back, we're currently not getting any level. And why aren't we getting any level is the question. Has something to... Oh, it's because I put it in the wrong place. Okay, my apologies. If you just have a blank effects layer, you're not going to get any sound, as we're proving right here. It's coming in, but it needs to go through something, and I think I ran into that same problem when I was showing you guys this on the DJ effects. So now I'll put a tool and I'll delete it, and now we're getting some level. And this one will be dry, and I can obviously set the volume here however I want. Now if I want to add a new layer, I'll just click the plus sign and I don't know, let's put on a regular compressor. Why not? Let's solo this and let's come up with a nice little compressed version of this guy. Just do something gentle. Let's get bouncy. Or if we want, we can slam it. Okay, so that's going to be our heavily compressed signal. Now we'll mix those two together. And again, always keep your eye on your gain staging. One thing that might be smart is to put a tool at the front and actually turn things down a little bit. Because with each layer we make, we are going to be adding quite a bit of level. And so it's easy to start running into the reds on the output here. So keep a close eye on the meters here, or whatever the meter is that's all the way to the right. And in this case, this meter out here. So let's add another level and let's make a chorus. Set the mix to 100%. Okay, cool. So I can start to mix this guy in as well. etc., etc., etc. We could take this as far as we wanted to take it. Now, I already have a dry sitar track playing, so I don't actually need a dry one here. And now I can mix in my dry and my wet. And the cool thing about this is I can now apply reverb to just the dry sitar. And it's going to kind of give it the effect like the entire group, the dry and the wet sitar, are having reverb added to it. So here we go. Let's... Maybe we'll add just a touch here as well. We can also adjust the panning. So if I want to pan the chorus to the left and this filter off to the right, I can do that. Yeah, so actually more reverb on the wet is sounding better in this example. Okay, so before I go any further, I apologize. I just keep getting in the zone and trying to tweak things to taste. But the point is we have all these different ways of using and implementing parallel processing. And in this example, we're actually kind of doing it in 3 ways. We're using that track duplication, we're using the effects layer, and we're also using our send and return structure. Okay, so I hope that has been helpful to you guys. I hope you now have an idea of what parallel processing is all about. You can see it's lots of fun. I just got into a trance for about 3 minutes of tweaking settings. I apologize for that. I think I did that in all 3 videos. But the point is this: if you feel the need to keep a signal dry and then to be able to process it independently, or if you just want to independently work with any audio signal, your best bet is to implement parallel processing in either one of the 3 ways I showed you or in some kind of combination. All right, thank you so much for watching, and you'll hear from me again in the next lesson. Take care.